of Poplar, Bluff, Missouri, to be held on Monday, August 19th, 2019, at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers at 301 South 5th Street will now come to order. I would like to yield the floor to our Councilor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is my distinct pleasure, and my buttons are busting tonight, to say that our invocation will be given by my personal minister from my church, and that the Pledge of Allegiance will be given by the members of my troop, 166, sponsored by the First Christian Church. So I appreciate the mayor giving me the opportunity to introduce these folks. And I don't think it was out of deference to me. I think it was because he wasn't sure he could properly pronounce Reverend Chlastak's last name. But at this time, we would invite Reverend Frank Chlastak up from the First Christian Church to do our invocation.
Thank you, Mark, for those gracious words. Mayor, City Council, men and women, it's always a pleasure on behalf of the First Christian Church to come and offer prayers for your guidance. In the scriptures, it talks about God's Spirit being over the face of the waters, and I must say from time to time we get really busy, so sometimes you just need to take a deep breath and allow that Spirit to get within us. I have to just gig you a little bit and say that I felt that Spirit trout fishing today, flowing across the spring river with my wife. So just take a deep breath and allow God's Spirit to kind of relax you and kind of guide you tonight. Will you pray with me? Dear wise and loving God, Father and Mother to us all, thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here tonight. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings you have bestowed upon us. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance, and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thanks as well for the freedom to embrace you or the freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us even so from your boundless and gracious nature. In the scriptures, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, tonight I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. Tonight, graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and righteousness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives, and joy in their tasks. I pray for the agenda set before them tonight. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Poplar Bluff. It is in your most blessed name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And now we will have the Pledge of Allegiance by the young men from Troop 4166, sponsored by the First Christian Church. If they would come forward, please. Scoutmaster Bob Summers.
So we wanted to thank the council for having us out tonight. Troop 166, which Mark Richardson started 31 years ago, believe it or not. And these young men are out here tonight earning a portion of their citizenship in the Community Merit Badge. So we thank you for allowing us to come in.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all so much for that. Item 4 on the agenda, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Parson. Councilman DeGaris.
Here.
Councilwoman Horton.
Here.
Councilman Cornman. Councilman Black.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 5, disclosure of interest. Any member of the city council may disclose any possible conflict of interest dealing with either any item on the printed agenda or with any matter discussed at a previous meeting. Hearing none. Item 6, citizens' input. Each person in the audience may take this opportunity to address the city council on any matter which is not on the printed agenda. I believe first we have Mark Baker. Please state your name and address, please.
Mark Baker, 2064 Green Ridge Lane, Jackson, Missouri. Good evening, Mayor Smith, City Manager Massingham, City Attorney Richardson, City Clerk Young, and members of the council. It will come as no shock to many or all of you that I appear before you tonight with a great amount of concern regarding the action you took earlier this month at the previous council meeting when you voted to alter benefits for future employees by 1, eliminating the city's payment portion of dependent insurance, and 2, eliminating the city's payment portion for retiree insurance. I've heard many of you advocate on behalf of the city's employees, so this was somewhat shocking when I realized it had happened. I understand that you have compared our payment structure with other municipalities, and I get that. But in my opinion, this cost shifting is the easiest, and please don't take offense at this, the laziest approach. If you are engaging in a game of follow the leader, which position is it that you desire to be in? A follower or a leader? It appears the city, at least on this subject, has chosen the former and not the latter. This is disappointing and disheartening. While I think we all can understand the need for any employer to control costs, the approach the city has undertaken in regard is counterintuitive to attracting and retaining the best possible future employees. I do understand that this tactic is much in line with some of the intentions set out in the 2010 Affordable Care Act, wherein the act believed every employer should cover their own employees with adequate health insurance coverage. While noble and idealistic in its own right, it fell short on implementation and practicality. In all reality, we have several employees working right here in the city, for the city, whose dependent spouse works for an employer who may or may not even offer health insurance, and if they do, it's possibly so costly it's not a viable option. Now, I'm not so naive to believe this happened without tremendous deliberation, and I have had ongoing discussions with the city about the health insurance provision dating back to 2017 and even before. To my understanding, the flaw in the system most likely developed years ago when the employee portion of the premiums possibly or probably could have or should have gradually increased in an effort to offset or to try to control increases. However, my understanding is that this did not happen and premiums for the employees remained flat, thereby increasing the deficit in the city's health insurance account. As part of my research into the history of these benefits, I tracked the plan designs back to 2009. Over the several ensuing years, individual and family deductibles increased, out-of-pocket amounts increased, and co-insurance percentages were raised on the employees and their families. There was a major plan design change beginning in 2016 that skyrocketed the deductible for the base plan from $2,500 to $6,850 for the individual and double those amounts for family coverage. And realistically, it forced most people to consider one of the two buy-up options, thereby increasing their costs as well. The decreasing benefit levels in the medical plans, along with rising costs, are not isolated incidents here in the city of Poplar Bluff, and you are not the only employer with employees who have been or will be affected. Saturday's edition of the Washington Post chronicles the woeful tale of the healthcare cost crisis in southeast Missouri, specifically the 5 surrounding counties, but is endemic across all of the rural parts of the state and possibly the nation. There is this systematic tug of war between providers and patients for dollars that may or may not be available for payment of services rendered. I have heard it stated that America's healthcare system is broken. I personally disagree with that, but I will agree that the way we pay for America's healthcare system is broken. Too many times people are having to sacrifice their own personal care or care of a loved one because finances won't permit or they drastically prohibit the proper course of action. And I don't and I won't believe there is anyone in this community that would advocate for someone to be denied treatment because of that person's inability to pay for the required medical attention. But things are not all bad. There is some good news. To my knowledge and understanding, the balance on the city's health insurance account had a deficit number of $2.4 million at the end of 2017. As I now believe it to be, that balance as of April of this year had been reduced to $1.8 million. This represents a $600,000 decrease in only 16 months. If we continue on the current path, it is possible by April of 2023, the deficit could be eliminated and the account could start seeing a surplus. This is purely hypothetical, and we would be speculating entirely. But we would be doing so with empirical data that could support an approach like that. Finally, I'm here tonight to make 2 requests. First, I would ask that you discuss reinstating the insurance committee that had employee participation. The committee can be beneficial and their input invaluable when considering plan design changes, and their involvement and engagement in the process should not be undervalued. Secondly, I would appeal to your sense of patience and ask that you rescind your recent vote to eliminate the aforementioned benefits for future new hires. Give the plan some time. For my part, I will continue to work with the city and any agent of record on these matters with the intent to mutually provide an avenue that seeks to reduce and eventually eliminate the deficit, but while trying to maintain the highest level of benefit for the employees, which I know is what we all want. In the end, I may be wrong, and these cuts may be necessarily. But currently, we are on the right track. Our deficit did not happen overnight. We have made huge strides in stopping the bleeding and are currently in the healing phase. If you continue to proceed with this action, I believe you will drastically shrink the employment pool of qualified applicants, and those that do end up working here may find themselves in a future edition of the Washington Post. I don't anticipate any questions, but if anybody has any for me, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them. I do appreciate and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mark.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
For those of you who don't know, I'm Sandy Walker. I have been an employee of the city for 34 plus years. And what I'm about to say, only one person that sits on this board knows what I'm saying is true. In the 34 years that I have worked for the city, my job has not been normal like most people who go to work every day, because I have a handbook from the city council that gives me a whole 2 pages of things that says I have to abide by as a city employee. I'm supposed to stand if somebody spits on me and take it. I'm not supposed to argue with customers. I'm supposed to be financially stable and take care of my business affairs so that I'm not an embarrassment to the city. I'm told how far I can live from the city limits. The city pretty much has dictated my whole life that I have served for this city. Many, many times have we went to the table to get a raise, and we gave it up so that we could have the benefits that we have now of retirement insurance and insurance for our families. And there was a lot of raises through the years, long before I came, that gave up to have those benefits. And part of those benefits are part of our pay, where our pay may not be as high as those who do the same jobs outside of the utility area. So those things help us to make up for what we do not get on the hourly wage. So I would ask that you would take into consideration that we don't just compare to other cities. I want you to take into consideration of all the sacrifices that we make to be good employees to the city. And to be where we don't have the lawsuits that you just paid and the other things that could cost the city more because we weren't good employees. Those who come after us, you will want them to be good employees too, and you're going to expect it. And they deserve the same benefit that we have gave up so much to have, and those who before us gave up to have. For those who haven't been on this council and haven't been a part of it like Mr. DeGaris has, you won't understand. But we have sacrificed a lot to have what we have, and we don't want to see it go away. And we would ask that you would please consider reversing your decision on taking away from those who are coming after us.
Ma'am, excuse me.
We need your address.
I need your address for the record, please. Thank you.
917 County Road 364, Harville, 63945.
Thank you. Have someone else. Please state your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Jeff Qualls. My address is 3663 McLean Drive, Poplar Bluff, Missouri. And I currently serve as the consultant of record to the city of Poplar Bluff and their health plan. And I wanted to take a few minutes to follow up to Mr. Baker's comments. I would agree with him that this is the first time in a long time that this plan has taken a positive turn. There was employee morale that has came back. This has been the first time I think City Manager Massingham would agree that we've not had a lot of blowback from the employees, very unhappy about their benefits. There's been a lot of positive things made, a lot of positive strides made in the last 18 months. And we faced a very tough road when we started 18 months ago to correct this plan. And everybody's pitched in and made concessions to get this to happen. Now, when I heard about this, the decrease in the contribution amounts for these employees, my first question was, how did you arrive at this decision? Where did these numbers come from? How much is this going to affect the budget right now? That was one of my questions I would like to know. And I think the employees would like to know, where is this impact going to come from? If it's for future.
It's going to take a period of time.
It's going to take a period of time.
Yes,
correct.
it is.
And if it takes a period of time, what we're putting it into play for now, I mean, we may be planning for something that, as you and I have discussed, it may or may not work out the way that we think it does. The plan is taking some positive moves. And what my concern is that by reducing this subsidy for these employees and their dependents, you're shrinking your risk pool. You're possibly putting this plan in a worse position because you are going to have to continue to cover the retirees that are going to retire. And you're going to have to continue the people that need to be on this plan, that have to be on this plan, that have no other choice, the ones that generally contribute the most of the claims. So when you remove that premium going in, you potentially put yourself in a worse position than you are in. That's the biggest concern that I have, is to make sure that you don't put yourselves in a position where you start a downward spiral again. Because we've had a tendency, every time that we've got this plan sort of go in the right direction, something has happened where that it's taken a different course of action. I've served in many different capacities with this plan and worked with City Manager Massingham for in excess of 10 years on this plan. And I can tell you that I've personally recovered and accounted for over $2.5 million of recoveries and funds that we have put back into this plan. So if anybody knows these numbers, it's myself, and I'll give you, Mr. Baker has studied them a lot as well. He just hasn't been around as long as I have. But that said, I do agree with what he's saying. I think we're all on the same page that we want this city to have the best employees that they can get. And in order to do that, you're going to have good benefits. I recently, and I'll give you all a copy of this, there was an article that came out on August the 14th from the Kaiser Family Foundation showing that the average premium contribution towards a family's cost is 66%. And that was last week, just came out. That's the average cost. And then the employees' cost, including their deductibles, equated out to the other 33%. So we were right in line with that. Now, I know that we've compared that to some other municipalities around, but we can also say that, you know, our costs are one thing and our budgeted amounts are another thing. This plan is self-funded, and last year it performed much better than what was budgeted. And we need that to happen for a little bit longer in order to get out of this deficit, like Mr. Baker alluded to. We do feel we're on the right track. We feel like we've got the right things happening. And I think it's a shame to make a decision like this that's going to affect the employee morale if it's not going to show some immediate gains financially. So I would ask that you just reconsider your decision. If any of you would like any information regarding this, I'd be happy to give you whatever I can furnish you. I know Mr. Baker will as well. Any questions?
Mr. Brawls, when I came back on the council, you and I met along, I think Mr. Davis was
Correct.
with us. One of the primary emphasis you made to us was that we had to reduce this deficit. As far as I'm concerned, we've done what you told us we had to do.
Right.
We've also done what the auditors told us we needed to do. So, enough said. I don't mean to argue with you, sir. That's just the other balance of what you have
I
said.
would ask you if your auditors, you know, the auditors missed about $2.5 million that I found. So we'll put the money where the money came from and who found it. That's what really needs to be emphasized.
All right.
So, thank you.
Well, I think what people don't understand is the problem we have in general fund. And I hate to pit one employee group against another, but to explain my view, I think I have to. I mean, we've been negotiating with Mr. Baker on the police department. A police officer makes a little less than, or a little over $21 an hour. Top pay on a police officer is $43,000. A meter reader makes $47,000 after 24 months. A stock clerk at utilities, $52,000. A bookkeeper, $21.74. Yet a police officer who risks his life every day makes a little more than $21 an hour. I can't give raises because we're spending so much on health insurance and retiree insurance. When we first started doing retiree insurance on general fund, the first couple of years it cost us anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000. Last year we spent $248,000 on retiree insurance. You know, it comes down to, do you want to keep the benefits or do you want the salary increase? I can't do both, or we can't do both. Not with the way things have been the last few years. That's where I'm coming from. So, you know, we've had a 3% pay increase over the last 2 years. The first year they got no pay increase. Last year they got a 3% pay increase. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this year, first of next year. Other employees have gotten a 4% for 3 years, a 12% over 3 years. So that's where I'm coming from.
Can I still speak?
Sure.
Sure.
You sit here and you talk about how you don't have enough money to give the employees raises and how the city's trying to save money. But I listened to a council meeting a couple of weeks ago where you decided to give a local contractor a contract that could have been for less money. You paid over $200,000, well, $800,000 for a contract that could have been a whole lot less. But you justified that because that was a local person. We're local people too. We put back into
Yes,
our
you are.
economy.
That was a split decision, I might point out.
Yes, it was. And that was not general fund money, so. You know, we can't just go raise taxes when we want to. I mean, we have to have a vote of the people, and there's only so many tax dollars there to pay for everything we have to pay for.
If there be no other discussion, I'll move on. Something more?
Mr. Messingham, I do not disagree with anything that you said. For general fund, what's the solution?
Well, we have on the agenda tonight to try to pass the use tax again in November.
So-
That would be probably another $300,000 in sales tax.
Let me make sure I understand that item correctly. It's the internet. If I'm sitting in my couch, and if I don't want to drive to the local CVS or whatever, and I want to buy eye drops, if I go to CVS, I pay the sales tax when I purchase it across the counter. If I order eye drops from Amazon right now, here in Poplar Bluff, I don't pay sales tax on that.
That's correct.
But for the convenience of sitting in my recliner and ordering eye drops, I'm gladly going to pay the same sales tax because I know what it funds. So there's, to me, that's a slam dunk. And I'm emphatically happy that the council is pursuing that.
It's just hard to convince the public. The ballot language is complicated, but it's state mandated. It's
Actually, with your influence with the city employees, if they could grasp that, they could be a big of assist to
Okay.
all of us, the city and themselves in that process.
Okay. I know when we first started talking about the police officers, I heard from numerous long service policemen and policewomen that this city, because of your CALEA accreditation, I mean, I'm not bragging or anything, but they're the cream of the crop. I mean, you've got a phenomenal police force here in town, and I hope everybody's aware of that. I want, and I hope we all want them to be the best paid, the best benefits, because when I hear some of the stuff that they deal with, it's stuff we don't want to think about, that people have to deal with, and the bad stuff out there in the world. So they have felt the same pain that a lot of these other employees have with the reduced benefits, and honestly, it is a different pool of money at utilities versus general fund, and I do understand that. But how do we, because I heard the tax valuations and everything earlier, you know, the city's growing, you can drive through town, somebody's moving dirt somewhere to construct something new for 3 or 4 years now. The 8 Points project out there is phenomenal. I don't know how to say this without coming across accused. Where's all the money?
Well, on the 8 Points, we have to give them back half the sales tax, half the property tax, half the personal property tax, because that was the arrangement that was made back in, 2012. That was the TIF agreement.
Let me go talk to him. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
And I mean, you know, sales tax out there has grown over the last couple of years, but we only get half of it. Plus, you know, not knocking 8 Points, but I don't know what amount of business they've taken away from other people in town that we get the full sales tax from, like Home Depot or PAX or gambling or
The 8
Walmart.
Points, is that a perpetual situation, or is there a sunset on that item?
I think it's a 35-year agreement, which started just a few years ago.
Oh, Lord. I'll have dirt on top of me by then.
Me too.
Okay. Well, I'm always, it's no secret which side I'm advocating for.
I know.
But I also understand you can't get blood from a turnip. I'm interested in exploring opportunities to increase the revenues. And you'll find me a willing partner on all of that. So please keep that in mind.
Well, I mean, I can't tell you how more frustrating it's been the last few years, because I know our employees need pay raises. And the last thing I want to do is reduce benefits, but they want pay raises, we can't do both.
I understand. Well, and like Ms. Walker brought up, for the majority of the public, I hope I don't say something stupid here. A lot of people may not separate where money comes from.
No, they don't.
So I think that's a challenge that you all have when you make financial decisions, whether it's a local contractor or I mean, just think of all the heck you caught over looking at a new city council or city hall building. So there's a lot of challenges with that, and the messaging has to be developed properly. But I don't know where we go from here, because I'm going to be asking you for more money on Wednesday. You know that. So,
I know.
But I think Mr. Qualls, he's advocating, and I didn't think about it. He put it more eloquently than I could have thought about. But my belief is that when you're talking insurance, you want to get into the largest pool possible. And I'm not standing up here telling you I think we need a national whatever. Anyway, but I think he's right, because when people come into this plan as an employee, they're going to look at what can they afford. And I was just speaking with Terry Mizell back here from the water department, and we went over some figures on what a new hire might make there. And he told me in some other departments of the city it's even worse, where maybe a starting wage is only like $11 an hour. And I think for a family plan, the employee's portion right now is like $130 something. If somebody's at $11 an hour for a week, they'll make $440. And if they're paying $130 roughly, and then the city's paying the other 2/3, $260, then they're at $390 for the week to be deducted. Well, they're taking home $50. I mean, unless my math is wrong, those people, they can't afford to put their family on the plan. And I don't know what options exist, and I know there's probably some spouses or dependents out there that might be able to be on a different plan, but there's 1,000 options we need to be thinking about and talking about. I love self-insured. I love what you're doing with the plan, because there's no profit motive in it. You keep all the big, TPAs and everything, but, we ought to be at least talking pharmacy benefit managers, reassessing them every few years if you're not already doing that. And then there's, I'm not even sure the methodology, and this is no offense to Mr. Qualls, I don't know how they develop the rates. I know what the experience is. Mr. Massingham's got it to me for 10 years, but I don't know how they develop the rate structure out of that. You don't track the claims by dependents and the claims by employees. So I don't really know where you're spending the most of your money. Is it on your dependents? Is it on your employees? You can't tell by the way the claims are tracked. There's a lot of things that we could be talking about and implementing that may give us a clearer picture for the healthcare. Those are my interests long term, to have something sustainable and reduce that deficit, and let's have a surplus, and then we can increase benefits and pay.
Well, like you said earlier, we went, I think, 6 or 7 years without a rate increase. If we had done 3% a year, we wouldn't be in the shape we're in.
Now, I'm not up here advocating for the employees to pay more, just so that's
I
clear.
know you're not. No, I understand
Or
that.
I won't be able to walk back there here in a minute.
And you referenced the article in the Washington Post. I mean, a lot of our problems, the local healthcare system. The bulk of it is the local healthcare system,
Well, let's just be honest.
who are also getting a tax break for building the hospital there.
Well, and so the challenge is, when you read that article and it's $23 for 2 ibuprofen, that's ridiculous. And I've seen studies over the years, all the way back to 2005, what is the cost of covering the uninsured? And I saw a figure that in 2005 said, for every uninsured person out there, the insured people pay $922 annually in their premiums or benefit structure somewhere to help pay for those people that are uninsured. I don't know how we get away from that cost, but that's on the backs of every single person that's insured across America. We may be paying more or less here in city of Poplar Bluff. I don't know, but it's something on our back. I don't know how you shake it off of there. And when they're fighting for dollars, and when the hospital has to write off several thousand, what do you think they're going to do to the ratepayers that do have insurance and will pay claims? Those charges are going. We're in this death spiral that we've got to get figured out nationally. It's not isolated here. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like the council to know that
Please state your name and address.
Larry Maples.
Your
That,
address.
Your address.
Sir,
Your address, too.
195 County Road 4751, Poplar Bluff, Missouri. And nobody has said it yet, but years ago, and I think Ed was involved, and I'm thinking Mark was also, that we give up 11% in a 5-year contract. And that's back when I was making $8 an hour. That's a big cut. And, you know, to this day here, because I'm going to be retired soon, this day here, I'm looking forward to that. You know, what I give up years ago, and then what I'm going to get now. So that's all I want to know, because everybody in the council does not know that, but that's what had happened years ago, 20-something years ago. I've been there 32 years. And what we give up to let all these guys that we got now to have a better term and stuff. And how many people is actually on the insurance after retirement? Because I know quite a few that's already above age or on Social Security and stuff, and I don't think there's maybe 10, Mark, maybe?
Oh, no, over here, there's probably, I'm just guessing, maybe 20 people, something like that, maybe more than that.
Okay, citywide.
No, just on I keep saying our side, on general fund side.
Okay, you're saying general fund. Okay.
And I don't know that number, I didn't bring it with me, but there's quite a few, and I mean, it's grown over the years. Like I said, when we first started, there was just a few the first few years, and
right.
It didn't
in
cost
our
a lot.
department, there's not much neither. So it's only accomplished that and received that benefit. So I don't know. I just wish everybody would look at that and see what we gave up years ago for that. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on.
So my name is Bob Summers, 173 Timber Cove, Poplar Bluff. The council may not know, but around town over Labor Day and Memorial Day and 4th of July, magically flags pop up around town, and 2 weeks later, magically, the flags disappear. Yeah. So Troop 166, based on the generosity of folks throughout town and a lot through Mark Richardson, have been able to gather up money and build these flag assemblies. And we've been putting those flags out for, I don't know, 15 years or more, maybe 20 years. And with that, we have lots of flags, but we have a request of the council so that we can continue expanding that. Austin is here to make a request of you.
We are wanting to see if we can get more flag bases for the light poles around town, like 67 Highway and Oak Grove Road and stuff like that.
So we currently have about 160-ish flags that we hang up along Business 60, or 67, excuse me, Oak Grove Road, and a little bit of Shelby. What we'd like to see the council do is to add, my guess is probably 40 of those small bases, and have your crews go out and put those up. We have the flags to put in the holders. We just don't simply have the holders to put the flags up in. That's our request. If you could get them up, we'll put the flags up and continue to do this for all the events around town.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Do that.
And before you leave, I would like to get this young man's name and address, please.
Austin Kirby, 2219 Westmont.
Okay. Well, we'll work on that for you. We'll see what we can do about that.
Okay, well, we really appreciate your time. We appreciate you letting us come up and work on our merit badge, and you'll probably see us again at least in a year, but maybe before then. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you all for being here, too. Okay, we need to move on to the business at hand. Item 7, the consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda are approved by a single action of the City Council. If any council member would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and considered separately, he or she may request to do so.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. That ends the consent agenda portion. Item 8, workshop items for discussion. The City Council will discuss the City of Poplar Bluff authorizing and directing the submission of a ballot proposition to the qualified voters of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, to consider imposing a local use tax at the same rate as the local sales tax of the City of Poplar Bluff for purchases from out-of-state vendors that exceed $2,000, and that the general municipal election to be held in the city on November 5th, 2019. Mr. Massingham.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier this evening, this is the local use tax that we've tried to pass twice before. First time it was August of 2017. The city lost by 12 votes. August of 2018, which was also a primary election that had all your state and county offices, we lost by over 500 votes. It is very confusing language, but we're mandated by the state to use this language. One of the things that's kind of confusing, it says out-of-state vendors that exceed $2,000. What happens when you buy something off the internet right now? If you spend over $2,000, you're actually supposed to report that on your income tax. Nobody does that. Probably they don't know about it, but that's why that portion is in there. And when you buy something over the internet, if it's somebody within the state of Missouri, the sales tax goes to wherever that business is. If you order something from off the internet from somebody in Cape Girardeau, the sales tax stays in Cape Girardeau at whatever the rate is. This is for out-of-state vendors, where you would pay sales tax at the City of Poplar Bluff rate to those out-of-state vendors, and then they would report it to Missouri Department of Revenue, and it would come in like our regular sales tax. Don't really have much more to say about that. It's been estimated that we would probably get $300,000 or $400,000. I can tell you that if you go to the U.S. Census Bureau in 2009, 10 years ago, the internet sales accounted for 2% or less than 2% of total retail sales throughout the United States. As of January 2019, that it is almost 10% of total retail sales. And if you look at the chart, it's just a constant. You know, in 4 years, it could be 15%. I don't know. It's just going to keep going up. So every dollar that's spent on the internet that's not spent here, we lose those tax dollars. It's not fair to the local merchants that have to collect that sales tax. Local merchants are the ones that support our community, they support our ball team, they employ people, and I buy things off Amazon if I can't find it here, but it's really cutting in and it's hurting a lot of cities. You know, Columbia, Missouri can't pass it, Cape Girardeau can't pass it, so I just think we need to try at least one more time.
I think we do too. It seems like I still believe a lot of people don't fully understand how it works and the effect that it has, as you've already mentioned several of those things. But I make a motion we move it to the voting session to be held tonight.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Item B, the City Council will discuss a request to approve a proposed telecommunications monopole height of 130 feet to be erected at 635 South 6th Street. The applicant is Jake Sprague of Network Real Estate LLC, St. Charles, Missouri. Mr. Winters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So section 405.70 of our zoning regulations provide that cell phone towers such as this can be erected any height that the council authorizes. And as he said, the AT&T is wanting to construct this tower as a 130-foot monopole. I will point out on the map that was included with what Mr. Sprague submitted, it shows that accessing off of 6th Street, it's actually accessing off of 8th Street. It's right where Kendall, just right south of where Kendall comes into 8th Street is where the site is actually at. If anybody had a chance to drive out there, there are flags and stakes there on the site where it's going to be at. The parcel is a large parcel, and McCoy's scrapyard does have the 635 6th Street. That is their business address. However, this one will be located on the 8th Street side of this property.
It has to be located in the city on the front page, the power company's Ozark border. Is that an error?
Based on its location, that would be an error, yes.
Okay, I would assume so. Clarification, probably. Probably just a clarification there, as far as the power company.
Oh,
yeah. I make a motion, we move this to the voting session to be held September the 3rd.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Item C, the city clerk presented to the city council for their approval the abstract of votes cast in a special municipal election held Tuesday, August 6th. Mr. Massingham.
Yes, as you'll remember, the sales tax for the Highway 67 four-laning was held on August 6th with a surprising 88% yes vote, and the city clerk has those numbers she needs to present to you.
Thank you. I think each council member has received from the Butler County's clerk's office a certified copy of the August 6, 2019 abstract of votes. It should have been in your packet. With all precincts reporting, there were 613 votes cast, there being 542 yes votes and 71 no votes.
I'm certainly proud of the citizens of Poplar Bluff and the response that we had there. We all know that the four-lane going north has been an excellent thing to St. Louis, and this will complete it as we go south, and it seems like a win-win for all of us. Very thankful for it. With that, I'd make a motion that we verbally accept the abstract of votes as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 9, action required items. Item AA, bill number 8170. The city council will take action on an ordinance regarding the lowering of the speed limit on Barron Road. Hearing no response, bill number 8170 dies for lack of action. Item BB, bill number 8171. the City Council will take action on an ordinance relative to a Missouri Department of Natural Resources administrative order on consent.
Move for first reading of bill number 8171.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Counselor.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an administrative consent order between the city of Poplar Bluff and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources relative to the Missouri State Safe Drinking Water laws.
Motion for second reading?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Counselor.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an administrative consent order between the city of Poplar Bluff and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources relative to the Missouri State Safe Drinking Water laws.
Motion for adoption of Bill 8171.
Second.
Any further discussion? Clerk Young.
Councilman DeGaris.
Yes.
Councilwoman Horton.
Yes.
Councilman Black.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes.
5 yes votes.
Bill number 8171 is adopted. Item CC, Bill number 8172, the City Council will take action on an ordinance providing for the levy and collection of property taxes for the year beginning January 1st, 2020, and ending on December 31st, 2020, for the following purposes: 1, general revenue, and 2, police and firemen's pension fund to be levied and collected as to all property in the city of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, both personal and real, except household goods located in private homes.
Move for first reading of bill number 8172.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Councilor Richardson.
An ordinance of the city of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, providing for the levy and collection of property taxes for the year beginning January 1st, 2019, and ending on December 31st, 2019, for the following purposes: general revenue, police and firemen's pension fund, to be levied and collected as to all property in the city of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, both real and personal, except household goods located in private homes.
Motion for second reading of Bill 8172.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Councilor Richardson.
An ordinance of the city of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, providing for the levy and collection of property taxes for the year beginning January 1, 2019, and ending on December 31st, 2019, for the following purposes: number 1, general revenue; number 2, police and firemen's pension fund, to be levied and collected as to all property in the city of Poplar Bluff, both real and personal, except household goods located in private homes.
Motion for adoption.
Second.
Any further discussion? Clerk Young, please.
Councilwoman Horton.
Yes.
Councilman Black.
Yes.
Councilman DeGaris.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes.
5 yes votes.
Bill number 8172 is adopted. Item DD, Bill number 8173, the City Council will take action on an ordinance authorizing and directing the submission of a ballot proposition to the qualified voters of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, to consider imposing a local use tax at the same rate as the local sales tax of the City of Poplar Bluff for purchases from out-of-state vendors that exceed $2,000 at the general municipal election to be held in the city on November 5th, 2019.
Motion for first reading of bill number 8173.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Councilor Richardson.
An ordinance imposing a use tax for general revenue purposes at the rate of 2 1/4% pursuant to authority granted by and subject to the provisions of Section 144.600 through 144.761 RSMO, providing for the use tax to be repealed, replaced, or raised in the same amount as any city tax is repealed, replaced, or reduced, and providing for the submission of the proposal to the qualified voters of the city of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, for their approval at the primary election called and to be held in the city of Poplar Bluff on November 5th, 2019.
Motion for second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Councilor Richardson.
An ordinance imposing a use tax for general revenue purposes at the rate of 2 1/4% pursuant to the authority granted by and subject to the provisions of Section 144.600 through 144.761 RSMO, providing for the use tax to be repealed, reduced, or replaced in the same amount as any city sales tax is repealed, reduced, or raised, and providing for the submission of the proposal to the qualified voters of the city of Poplar Bluff, Missouri for their approval at the primary election called and to be held in the city of Poplar Bluff November 5th, 2019.
Motion for adoption.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, Clerk Young.
Councilman Black?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Yes.
Councilman DeGaris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Horton?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes.
5 yes votes.
Bill number 8173 is adopted. Item EE, there is no need for a closed meeting tonight. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn following the city manager's report.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Not yet. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
I'll get back to that. I'll wait a few minutes for Councilman Black. I know each month you all receive a kind of a summarized financial report from the Finance Department. What I just passed out is a little bit more detail. This is for the month of June. Just kind of broke out the different portions of our revenue sheets, the taxes and license and permits and so forth. And as of June, the end of June, our revenues were at 50.08%, which is right on target. On the following pages, I've broken it down. This is general fund to each department, from city council all the way down to the non-department. As you can see, total general fund expenditures are at 50.77% for the year for 6 months, which is pretty close, being right on target. What I'd like to do is probably start presenting this each month at the end of the meeting as the months progress. And if you have any questions,
feel free to call me or go over it with you. I'll be more than happy to.
Maybe you could just quickly help me define salary support for me a little.
Salary support is basically Medicare and FICA.
I see, yeah, got you.
And then benefits would be a retirement and health insurance.
Sure, I got you.
Okay. I'm not saying it's going to continue this way. I hope it does, because it's 50% and 50% pretty much. I just want to talk a little bit about Briggs and Stratton. I know I communicated that with you all, and there was a nice article in the newspaper. As Steve Halter said, it's a little bit bittersweet. It's great for Poplar Bluff. Feel bad for Murray, Kentucky, but we were able to keep 500 plus jobs here and add additional, hopefully 300 or 400 more jobs in the next couple of years. I think that says a lot of how Briggs and Stratton feels about its employees and this community. They've been here a little over 30 years, and that was a big boost for our community. Only other thing is, I really didn't want to pit employees against employees tonight, but I just needed to point out that what some employees make and some of our more life-threatening positions that we have, police officers and firefighters, and I'd love to pay them more. And I know this benefit change we made, it's going to take a while to kick in and make some changes, but my opinion, we have to start somewhere. So that's all I have.
It just makes sense. We're in closed session.
No.
No.
Okay.
We can.
And I have no comment.
Okay, we had is there any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. We need a roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We're adjourned.
Just hope my electricity don't go out tonight.
Yeah.